Have you ever had one of those moments where someone asks you how you're doing and you honestly don't know how to answer? Because you're functioning, you're showing up, you're taking care of everyone else, you're going to work, running the business, making the appointments, paying the bills, doing all the things you're supposed to do. But underneath it all, you're exhausted. Not, I need a nap exhausted, the kind of exhausted that lives in your bones, the kind of exhausted that sleep doesn't seem to fix, the kind of exhausted that comes from carrying too much for too long. If you've been feeling that way lately, this episode is for you. Welcome back to Behind the Lash with Tammy. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to say thank you. The response to the first episode of Season 2 was incredibly meaningful to me. I received messages from listeners who told me they felt seen, understood, and reminded that they weren't alone in what they're going through. And honestly, that's exactly why I started this podcast. When I looked at the analytics recently, I was surprised and grateful to see where listeners are tuning in from. Most of you are listening from Canada and the United States, but we also have listeners in Mexico, the United Kingdom, South Korea, Vietnam, India, Japan, France, Brazil, Argentina, and several other countries around the world. No matter where you're listening from today, thank you. Whether you're driving to work, taking a walk, folding laundry, working with clients, commuting home, or simply taking a few moments for yourself, I'm grateful you're spending part of your day with me. One of the things I've realized is that although we live in different places and have different stories, many of us carry similar struggles. And lately, one thing I've heard over and over is this: I'm tired. Not lazy, not unmotivated, not giving up, just tired. So today, I want to talk about something I think many women are feeling but not talking about enough: the pressure to keep going when you're exhausted. I think one of the hardest parts of adulthood is that so much of the work we do is invisible. People see the finished product. They don't see what it took to get there. They see the business. They don't see the anxiety. They see the family photo. They don't see the appointments. They see the social media post. They don't see the tears behind it. For women especially, we're carrying multiple full-time jobs at once. We're mothers, daughters, wives, caregivers, business owners, employees, household managers, and many of us are trying to do all of that while managing our own struggles too. In many of my previous episodes, I've shared with you all of my struggles where I've talked about Alexis and her diagnosis and all the parenting responsibilities that come with supporting a child who has extra needs. We have ongoing issues with advocacy in school because she is not able to advocate for herself. So as her parents, of course, we have to ensure that systems are set in place to set her up for success. There's also a lot of appointments and meetings and bringing her to therapy that requires so much planning and organizing that no one ever sees. Then on top of that, I'm managing my health. I've been very vulnerable and open about sharing my past struggles with entering perimenopause without even knowing what's happening to my body. And simultaneously trying to run my business, trying to keep Beauty by Tammy alive in this economy. It really is a lot trying to keep everything moving simultaneously. For someone like me who's type A personality, I'm a planner. I need to know what I'm doing and where I'm going. It is really hard to rest and slow down. No one taught me how to rest and slow down, and how it is just as essential to rest and slow down as it is to keep going. And sometimes when you don't listen to your body forces you to listen and slow down, and you have no choice. The one thing people don't talk about enough is financial anxiety, especially as entrepreneurs. There's this idea online that entrepreneurship equals freedom. And sometimes it does, but sometimes entrepreneurship feels incredibly heavy. Because when you're tired, the bills don't stop. When you're overwhelmed, the expenses don't stop. When you're facing uncertainty, responsibilities don't stop. There can be this constant voice in the background saying, keep going, keep producing, keep selling, keep growing. And before you know it, your worth becomes tied to your productivity. You start believing that if you're not producing, you're falling behind. I have heard from many lash artists behind the scenes that have reached out to me and has asked me about the changing lash industry. Tammy, what's going on with the industry? Why has it slowed down? And it's not just the lash industry. I would say it's the beauty industry in general. There's a lot of economic uncertainty with everything going on with the world and different leaderships, different leadership behind different countries have different policies now. Look what's happening between Canada and the US. We used to be like the big brother and the little brother, and now all this goodwill that we've built between the two countries is being jeopardized. So there's a lot of economic uncertainty. People are being very careful with their finances. They're watching every dollar. It's not that they're not spending, they're just spending with intention. There were so many changes to the lash industry after COVID. You know, the DIY trend with the do-it-yourself lashes really took the lash industry by storm. A lot of that replaced going to get beauty services. I would still say that beauty services will always be around. It has survived recessions and wars. The beauty industry, we were always told, is recession proof, but there's no denying that there's been a decline. So your concerns are valid and your fears are valid. So when you're considering what your future might look like, especially if you have a spa or a studio or your lash academy, you're running a small business in Canada, if you're a beauty entrepreneur, it is important to take a look at your business and really look at where you can get more lean, cut out expenses, cut out unnecessary frivolous expenses. I don't mean it's not important, but in the past, it was nice to have. So anything that was nice to have, I would say get more lean about your business, because as entrepreneurs, we will always feel the pressure to always have everything figured out, but you're never going to have everything figured out because life is going to unfold the way it's going to unfold. Often we have no control over so many factors like the economy, what the future is going to look like. So I would just focus on what you can control, the things that you have control over in your business, such as your expenses and where you can get more lean. That would be my advice. We can weather the storm together. This has probably been one of the biggest lessons of my life recently, that rest is not failure, but sometimes it feels like it is, especially if you spent years being productive. Especially if you spent years being the person everyone depends on. The moment you slow down, guilt arrives, right? You start thinking, I should be doing more. I should be working. I should be accomplishing something. But what if rest isn't something we earn? What if rest is something we need? What if recovery is productive? What if slowing down now prevents complete burnout later? These are questions I've been asking myself a lot lately. And honestly, I'm still learning the answers. You know that I have struggled this year with a crazy cough that turned into bronchitis. That dry hacking cough stayed with me for months and months. And no matter what I did, I just couldn't get rid of it. And when it turned into bronchitis, after multiple doctor's visits, I finally got it under control through a crazy dose of medications. So that delayed my season 2 podcast. And on top of that, I've been dealing with other health challenges, and it made me feel guilty while I was resting. I know I shouldn't be feeling that way, but we've been told that if you're not productive, you're not of value. I think that is the biggest lesson, feeling guilty while resting. We don't want to do that to ourselves anymore. You have to realize that your body is asking you to slow down, and that's okay. Social media can make exhaustion feel even heavier because when you're struggling behind the scenes, everyone else's life looks perfect. Everyone seems to be launching, growing, traveling, making money, hitting milestones. Meanwhile, you're just trying to get through the week. The truth is that social media is often a highlight reel. We're comparing our behind the scenes to someone else's best moments, and that's never a fair comparison. Some of the strongest people I know are carrying burdens they never post about. I've talked a lot about what was happening behind the scenes and recording this podcast while I was struggling, but still wanting to show up online while facing all this uncertainty. We all know if social media is the highlight reel, and there's a big difference between appearance and reality, why do we still fall for this trap? If listening to my podcast keeps you in touch with your reality, that's what I'm here for. Let's all continue to be self-aware together. I honestly think we're still processing everything the pandemic years took from us, not just financially, emotionally, mentally. Many people lost businesses, their health, opportunities, confidence, a sense of certainty about the future. Even though life appears normal again, I think many people are still carrying those years with them. Maybe that's why so many of us feel exhausted. Maybe we've been surviving for a very long time, and survival mode isn't supposed to last forever. At some point, we have to move from surviving to healing, and healing often requires slowing down. If you're listening today and you're exhausted, I want you to hear this. You do not have to earn rest. You do not have to prove your worth through productivity. You do not have to carry everything perfectly. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to recover. You are allowed to move through difficult seasons without turning every moment into an accomplishment. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we're tired and then give ourselves permission to rest. If today's episode resonated with you, I want to ask you for one small favor. Share this episode with one person. Maybe it's a friend, a sister, a fellow entrepreneur, a caregiver, or someone who's quietly carrying more than people realize. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remind someone they're not alone. And if you're enjoying Behind the Lash with Tammy, I would be so grateful if you would leave a rating or review wherever you're listening. Reviews help more people discover the podcast, and they help me continue creating episodes like this. In our next episode, we're going to explore something I think many women struggle with after difficult seasons. How do you rebuild trust in yourself after life knocks you down? How do you start believing in yourself again when things haven't gone according to plan? I can't wait to have that conversation with you. Until then, be gentle with yourself, protect your peace, give yourself permission to rest, and remember, you don't have to carry everything alone. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you back here in 2 weeks for another episode of Behind the Lash with Tammy.